The last $5. Marcus Chen sat in his car outside the grocery store, staring at the crumpled $5 bill in his palm. It was all the money he had until Friday, 3 days away. His gas tank showed a quarter full, his refrigerator at home was nearly empty, and his 8-year-old daughter Emily had asked him that morning if they could get pizza for dinner like they used to. He'd said maybe, but maybe meant no, and they both knew it. The parking lot was full of people walking out with bags of groceries, their lives seemingly normal and uncomplicated. Marcus watched them and wondered where exactly everything had gone wrong. 5 years ago, he'd been pulling in 6 figures as a senior marketing executive. He'd had the house, the car, the lifestyle. Then came the layoff, the divorce, the downward spiral of bad decisions masked as temporary setbacks. Now, at 42 years old, he was living in a one-bedroom apartment, working 2 part-time jobs that barely covered rent, and trying to figure out how to make $5 stretch until payday. His phone buzzed. A text from his ex-wife, Jennifer. "Emily needs new shoes for school. Can you help with half?" Marcus closed his eyes and leaned his head against the steering wheel. He couldn't help with half. He couldn't help with anything. That's when he saw the old man. He was standing near the entrance of the grocery store, struggling with a cart full of bags. He couldn't have been younger than 75, wearing a worn but clean button-down shirt and slacks that had seen better days. The man fumbled with his keys, dropping them on the ground. Without thinking, Marcus got out of his car and walked over. "Let me help you with that, sir," Marcus said, picking up the keys and handing them to him. The old man looked up with grateful eyes. "Thank you, young man. These bags get heavier every year, or maybe I just get weaker," he chuckled softly. Marcus helped him load the groceries into an old sedan that looked even more tired than Marcus felt. As he placed the last bag in the trunk, the old man extended his hand. "Name's Walter," he said. "Walter Price." "Marcus Chen." "Marcus, you've got kind eyes but sad shoulders," Walter said, studying him with an intensity that made Marcus uncomfortable. "The weight you're carrying isn't in those grocery bags, is it?" Marcus tried to smile. "Is it that obvious?" "I've been where you are," Walter said simply. "Different circumstances, same desperation. May I buy you a cup of coffee? There's a diner across the street." Marcus glanced at his watch. He had nowhere to be for another 3 hours. "I appreciate the offer, but—" "I insist," Walter interrupted gently. "Besides, I have something I want to show you, something that changed my life. Maybe it'll change yours too." Something in the old man's voice made Marcus pause. Maybe it was loneliness, maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was just the fact that a stranger was offering him kindness when he needed it most. "Okay," Marcus said, "coffee sounds good." The Notebook. The diner was one of those old-fashioned places with red vinyl booths and a checkerboard floor. Walter ordered coffee and pie for both of them, waving away Marcus's protest about paying. "You helped an old man with his groceries," Walter said. "The least I can do is feed you." When the waitress left, Walter pulled out a worn leather notebook from his jacket pocket. It was old, the edges frayed, the cover scratched and stained. He placed it on the table between them with the reverence of someone handling something precious. "This," Walter said, "is what saved my life." Marcus looked at the notebook skeptically. "It's a journal." "More than that. It's a record of the habits that pulled me from the edge of ruin and built me a life worth living." Walter opened the notebook, and Marcus saw pages filled with handwriting, dates, checkmarks, and notes. Some pages were yellowed with age, others more recent. 27 years ago, Walter began, I was homeless. Not the kind of homeless where you sleep in your car, though I'd done that too. I mean sleeping under bridges, digging through dumpsters for food, drinking away whatever money I could panhandle. I'd lost my business, my marriage, my kids wouldn't speak to me. I'd lost my dignity. Marcus felt his throat tighten. He wasn't homeless, but the trajectory felt familiar. One night I was at my lowest. I decided that night would be my last. I was going to walk into the river and not come back out. Walter's voice was steady, but his eyes held old pain. On my way there, I passed a library. It was warm, and I thought I'd spend one last hour somewhere comfortable before I did it. He paused to sip his coffee. In that library, I picked up a book at random. It was about habits, how small, consistent actions compound over time. The author talked about how your life is essentially the sum of your habits. Everything you repeatedly do shapes who you become. I'd never thought about it that way, Walter continued. I'd always thought change required these massive, dramatic shifts, but this book suggested something different, that tiny improvements, done consistently, could transform everything. Marcus leaned forward. So what did you do? I started with one habit, just one. Every morning I would find somewhere to wash my face and hands. That was it. Sounds simple, right? Almost meaningless. But here's what happened. That tiny act of self-care made me feel a little more human, a little more worthy, and that feeling gave me enough confidence to add a second habit. Walter flipped through the notebook, showing Marcus pages of dates and checkmarks. Second habit, every day I would read for 30 minutes in the library. Then I added a third. I would apply to at least one job, no matter how many rejections I got. Then a fourth, I would do 50 push-ups and sit-ups, even though I could barely do 5 at first. How long before things changed? Marcus asked. Months, Walter said honestly. The first 6 months, nothing changed externally. I was still homeless, still broke, still rejected from every job, but internally something was shifting. I was becoming someone different, someone who kept promises to himself, someone who didn't give up. The waitress refilled their coffee. Walter continued. Month 7, I got hired as a janitor at an office building, night shift, minimum wage. It wasn't much, but it was something. I added new habits, saved $5 from every paycheck no matter what, learned something new about business every day, offered to help anyone who needed it. By month 12, I'd saved enough to rent a room. By month 18, they promoted me to building supervisor. By month 24, I was managing 3 buildings. But here's the thing, Marcus, the external success was just a side effect. The real transformation was internal. I'd become a different person, a person who kept showing up, a person who didn't quit, a person who invested in his future self, even when that future seemed impossible. Marcus felt something stirring in his chest, a mixture of hope and skepticism. That was 27 years ago, Walter said. I'm 76 now. I eventually started my own property management company, built it up over 15 years and sold it before I retired. My kids are back in my life. I have grandchildren. I'm not wealthy, but I'm comfortable. More importantly, I'm proud of who I became. He pushed the notebook toward Marcus. I still keep this notebook, still track my habits every single day, because the moment you stop investing in yourself is the moment you start declining. These habits don't just pay dividends once, they pay dividends for your entire life. Marcus touched the notebook carefully. Why are you showing me this? Because I saw myself in you. Marcus stared at the blank notebook. Part of him wanted to believe. Part of him thought it was too simple, too good to be true. What if I fail? He asked quietly. You'll fail many times, Walter said. I failed constantly, missed days, broke streaks. The difference between success and failure isn't perfection, it's persistence. Every day you wake up, you get another chance to keep your promise to yourself. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Walter stood up, leaving a $20 bill on the table. That's for your coffee and dinner tonight, he said before Marcus could protest. And Marcus, that $5 in your pocket, don't spend it yet. Make it your first deposit in your new life. Start a savings habit, even if it's just that $5. It's not about the amount, it's about keeping the promise. Walter wrote his phone number on a napkin. Call me in 30 days. Tell me how your first habit is going. I'd like to hear from you. And with that, the old man walked out of the diner, leaving Marcus alone with a notebook, a napkin with a phone number, and the first glimmer of hope he'd felt in years. Day 1. That night, Marcus sat at his small kitchen table after Emily had gone to bed. The notebook lay open in front of him, blank and full of possibility. His daughter was asleep in his bed. She always took the bedroom while he slept on the couch, and the apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and distant traffic. He thought about Walter's words, one habit, just one. Marcus uncapped the pen and wrote at the top of the first page, habits that pay dividends. Then he stared at the blank space below, pen hovering uncertainly. What habit should he start with? Exercise, reading, job searching. There were so many things he needed to fix. But then he remembered what Walter had said. Start small. Start with something so simple that failure seems impossible. Marcus thought about his mornings. They were chaotic, rushed, filled with anxiety. He'd wake up late, scramble to get Emily ready for school, forget things, feel behind before the day even started. What if he changed that? He wrote, Habit 1, wake up at 5:30 a.m. every day. It seemed arbitrary, but there was something powerful about it. If he could master his mornings, maybe he could master his days. 5:30 would give him time before Emily woke up, time to think, to plan, to become someone better before the demands of the world crashed in. Below the habit, he created a simple tracking system, a row of boxes for each day of the month. Check the box, keep the chain going. Miss a day, break the chain. He set his phone alarm for 5:30 a.m., placed the notebook on his pillow so he'd see it first thing, and lay down on the couch, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not quite hope, not yet, but maybe the possibility of hope. The first 30 days. The alarm sounded like violence at 5:30 a.m. Marcus's hand shot out to silence it, his body screaming at him to go back to sleep. He'd gotten maybe 5 hours. Every muscle ached from his shift, loading trucks at the warehouse. But then he saw the notebook on the floor where it had fallen. Day 1. He sat up, rubbing his face. The apartment was dark and cold. He could go back to sleep. Emily wouldn't be up for another hour and a half. He could rest. But he thought about Walter, about that old man who'd started with washing his face when he had nothing. If Walter could do that from under a bridge, Marcus could do this from a couch. He stood up. The first thing he did was make coffee. Then he sat at the kitchen table with his notebook and opened it. The empty box for day 1 stared at him. He drew a check mark in it, the ink bold against the white paper. 1 day down, 29 to go. He had an hour and a half of silence. At first, he didn't know what to do with it. He was so accustomed to chaos that peace felt uncomfortable. He drank his coffee and thought about his life, about Emily, about the future. Then he did something he hadn't done in years. He wrote. Not anything important, just thoughts, worries, dreams. He filled 2 pages with stream of consciousness rambling, and when he finished, he felt lighter somehow, like he'd taken some of the weight out of his head and put it on paper where it couldn't hurt him as much. When Emily woke up at 7, Marcus had already showered, made breakfast, and packed her lunch. She came out of the bedroom rubbing her eyes, surprised to see him ready and smiling. Morning, sweetheart, he said. Dad, you're up early. New routine, he said, placing a plate of eggs and toast in front of her. Starting today, things are going to be a little different around here. She looked at him skeptically. She'd heard promises before, but she smiled and ate her breakfast. That day at work felt different. Marcus was tired, yes, but there was a clarity to his tiredness. He'd done something for himself before the world made its demands. That small victory carried him through his shift. Day 2 was harder. The alarm went off, and Marcus's entire body rebelled. He'd worked both jobs, 12 hours total, and gotten home at midnight. His brain told him he needed sleep more than he needed a habit. He almost gave in. But then he thought about Walter's words. The difference between success and failure isn't perfection, it's persistence. He got up. This time he was too tired to write. He just sat with his coffee and stared at the wall, half asleep. But he was up. He checked the box for day 2. Day 3, day 4, day 5. Each morning was a small battle with himself. Some mornings he won easily. Others he won by inches, dragging himself out of bed through sheer willpower. By day 7, something shifted. His body began to expect the 5:30 alarm. He started waking up a few minutes before it went off, and those early morning hours began to feel less like punishment and more like a gift, a secret time that belonged only to him. He started using the time more intentionally. 15 minutes of reading, 15 minutes of planning his day, 15 minutes of stillness, just thinking and drinking coffee. Emily noticed. "Dad, you seem different," she said one morning. "Different how?" "I don't know, less stressed, maybe." Marcus smiled. He was still stressed, still broke, still working 2 jobs he hated, but she was right, something had changed. He was meeting each day from a position of strength rather than chaos. By day 14, his coworker Daniel noticed too. "Man, you've been on time every day this week," Daniel said during their break at the warehouse. "Usually, you're running in last minute." "Just trying to get my act together," Marcus said. "About time," Daniel said, but he was grinning. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Day 20 was the first day Marcus almost broke his streak. Emily got sick during the night, throwing up, fever, the works. Marcus was up with her until 4 in the morning, finally getting her settled and comfortable. When his alarm went off at 5:30, he felt like death. "This is stupid," he thought. "Nobody would blame me for skipping today." But then he thought, who am I making this promise to? Walter? Emily? No, I'm making it to myself. He got up, made coffee, and sat at the table for just 15 minutes before going back to check on Emily. He checked the box for day 20. That moment, choosing to keep his promise to himself, even when no one would know or care, felt more significant than all the other days combined. He'd proven something to himself. He was becoming someone who kept his word. By day 30, waking up at 5:30 wasn't a battle anymore. It was just what he did. He called Walter that evening, as promised. "Marcus," Walter's voice was warm. "I was hoping you'd call. How did it go?" "I did it," Marcus said, and he could hear. "So what's next?" Marcus asked. "What do you think should be next?" Marcus had been thinking about this. The early mornings had given him clarity, space to think. He'd realized that one of his biggest problems was money management. He made enough from his 2 jobs to survive, but barely. He never knew where his money went. He had no savings, no plan, no control. "I need to get my finances in order," Marcus said. "I need to know where every dollar goes and start saving something, even if it's small." "Excellent choice," Walter said. "So what's the habit?" "Every night before bed, I'll track every dollar I spent that day, and I'll save something from every paycheck, even if it's just $5. "Perfect, start tomorrow. And Marcus, keep that morning habit going. Don't drop habits when you add new ones. You're stacking them, building on each other." "I will, thank you, Walter." "Thank me in 6 months," Walter said, "when you see where these habits have taken you." Habit 2, money matters. Marcus started habit 2 the next day, financial tracking. He bought a small notebook for $3, an investment, he told himself, and began recording every single expense. Coffee, $2.50, lunch, $8, gas, $30, rent, $850. The first week was horrifying. He'd always known he was broke, but seeing exactly where his money went was like turning on lights in a dark room and discovering it was full of leaks. $7 on vending machines, snacks at work. $15 on late fees because he'd forgotten to pay a bill on time. $20 on fast food because he was too tired to cook. These weren't big expenses. They were tiny hemorrhages, but they added up to hundreds of dollars a month, money that could have been saved or used for Emily. On day 4 of financial tracking, Marcus sat at his kitchen table after Emily went to bed and did something painful. He calculated his net worth. Income, $2,400 per month from both jobs. Expenses, $2,380 per month. Net worth, negative $3,400 in credit card debt. Savings, $0. He stared at the numbers. At 42 years old, After 20 years in the workforce, he had a negative net worth. If he lost either job tomorrow, he'd be homeless within a month. The old Marcus would have felt despair and reached for a beer. The new Marcus, the one who'd kept a promise to himself for 30 consecutive days, felt something different. Determination. He couldn't change his income immediately, but he could change his expenses, and he could start saving even if it was tiny amounts. The next day, Marcus made a rule: before buying anything non-essential, wait 24 hours. This simple delay forced him to think about whether he really needed something or just wanted it in the moment. The vending machine's snacks stopped. He started packing his lunch instead of buying it. He called his credit card companies and negotiated lower interest rates, something he'd been too ashamed to do before. Small changes, tiny shifts, but his tracking notebook showed the results. Week 1 spent $547. Week 2 spent $512. Week 3 spent $483. Week 4 spent $461. In 1 month, he'd reduced his spending by nearly $90, money he redirected into a savings account he opened with his original $5 from that day in the parking lot. The account now had $105 in it. It wasn't much, but it was something. More importantly, it was a habit. Every paycheck, he paid himself first, $50 into savings before anything else. Emily noticed the changes too. "Dad, how come we're eating at home more?" she asked one evening. Marcus had been worried she'd complain, but she seemed curious rather than upset. "I'm trying to be smarter with our money," he said honestly. "Would you like to help me cook sometimes?" Her face lit up. "Really?" That became their new routine. 3 nights a week, Emily would help him cook dinner. They'd make simple meals: spaghetti, tacos, stir-fry, and she loved it. Marcus realized he'd been so focused on what he couldn't give her that he'd missed what he could: time, attention, involvement. The cooking became more than a cost-saving measure. It became connection. By the end of his second month of habit building, Marcus's morning routine was solid. His finances were tracking in the right direction, and he'd saved $210. He felt different, stronger, more in control. He called Walter to report his progress. "You're doing well," Walter said, "but I want you to think about something. You're fixing the present, which is good, but what are you building for the future?" "What do you mean?" "Skills, Marcus. You're working 2 jobs that don't require much skill, which means you're replaceable. What are you learning? What are you becoming that will be worth more tomorrow than you are today?" Marcus knew Walter was right. His warehouse job and his retail job required physical labor, but not growth. He could work them for 10 years and be in the same position. "I used to be good at marketing," Marcus said. "That was my career before everything fell apart." "So what's stopping you from being good at it again?" "The field has changed. Everything's digital now. Social media, analytics, tools I don't know how to use. I'm outdated." "So update yourself," Walter said simply. "That's your third habit. What if you spent 30 minutes every morning learning the new skills you need?" Marcus thought about his morning routine. He woke at 5:30, made coffee, did some writing and planning. He had time. The question was whether he had the discipline to use it for learning instead of just relaxing. "Okay," Marcus said, 30 minutes of skill building every morning. Marketing, analytics, social media. I'll teach myself." "That's it," Walter said. "Remember, tiny investments, compound returns. 30 minutes a day for a year is 182 hours. That's more than 4 full-time weeks of learning. Nobody stays outdated after 182 hours of focused study." Habit 3. Skill stacking. On the first day of Habit 3, Marcus woke at 5:30, made his coffee, and opened his laptop. He'd found free courses online about digital marketing, social media strategy, and analytics tools. The first lesson was overwhelming. The terms were unfamiliar. The platforms had changed. He felt old and stupid, like he was trying to learn a foreign language at an age when his brain didn't want to absorb new information. After 15 minutes, he wanted to quit. But he remembered something Walter had said. You'll fail many times. The difference between success and failure isn't perfection, it's persistence. He pushed through to 30 minutes, then closed his laptop, feeling frustrated but accomplished. He checked the box for day 1 of Habit 3. Day 2 was marginally easier. Day 3, he started understanding some of the terminology. By day 7, he'd completed his first online course, Introduction to Social Media Marketing. It wasn't much, but it was something. He started applying what he learned in small ways. He created a LinkedIn profile, something he'd never had before. He started following marketing thought leaders and reading their posts. He practiced creating sample campaigns, pretending he was working for real clients. At first, it felt like playing pretend, but gradually, he started thinking like a marketer again. The part of his brain that had been dormant for 5 years began to wake up. One morning, during his 3rd week of learning, Marcus had a realization. He was enjoying this. For years, work had been pure survival, punching clocks, earning paychecks, enduring. But this learning felt different. He was investing in himself, becoming more valuable, more capable. Even if nobody ever saw it, he was proud of the growth. At his warehouse job, Daniel noticed Marcus reading a marketing book during lunch break. "What's that about?" Daniel asked. "Just learning some new skills," Marcus said. "For what?" "For whatever comes next." Daniel shook his head, smiling. "Man, something's different about you lately. You've got this, I don't know, this energy or something." Marcus thought about that conversation later. Daniel was right. He did have different energy. The habits weren't just changing what he did, they were changing who he was. By the end of his 3rd month, Marcus had completed 6 online marketing courses and earned 3 digital certificates. They weren't from prestigious schools, but they were proof of competence. More importantly, he'd rebuilt his confidence. He could learn, he could grow, he wasn't stuck. His savings account now had $380. His credit card debt had dropped to $3,150. His mornings were productive and peaceful. Emily had noticed the changes and seemed happier, more secure. Things were moving in the right direction, slowly but definitely. Then, in month 4, everything almost fell apart. The crisis. Marcus's car broke down on a Tuesday morning. He was driving Emily to school when the engine made a grinding noise, then died. He managed to coast into a parking lot, but when he tried to restart it, nothing happened. The tow truck cost $85. The diagnostic at the mechanic cost $60. The repair would cost $1,200. Marcus felt the old panic rising in his chest. He had $440 in savings. He'd paid down some credit card debt but had no available credit left. His rent was due in a week. He had no emergency fund beyond what he'd saved, and that wasn't nearly enough. He was right back where he'd started, $5 away from catastrophe. That night after Emily went to bed, Marcus sat at his kitchen table and stared at his budget notebook. He'd been so proud of his progress. 3 months of perfect habits, of discipline, of growth, and 1 car repair had wiped it all away. He thought about calling Walter, but he was embarrassed. What would he say? "Your habits don't work. 1 bad break and I'm finished." Instead, he just sat there, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. His phone buzzed. A text from his ex-wife. "Did you get the email from Emily's school? They need $75 for the field trip by Friday." Marcus put his head in his hands. At 5:30 the next morning, his alarm went off. He reached to turn it off and go back to sleep. What was the point? 3 months of waking up early, and he was still broke. 3 months of saving, and 1 emergency had wiped him out. 3 months of learning skills nobody was paying him to use. His hand hovered over the snooze button. Then he saw his notebook on the floor, open to his habit tracking page. 93 consecutive days of waking at 5:30, 93 days of keeping a promise to himself. He thought about Walter, starting with washing his face when he had nothing. when he'd lost everything and was planning to walk into a river. If Walter could keep going from that place, Marcus could keep going from this one. He got up. He made his coffee, sat at his table, and opened his laptop for his 30 minutes of learning, even though it felt pointless. He updated his financial tracking, even though the numbers were depressing. Then he did something new. He opened a document and wrote at the top, Problems and Solutions. Problem 1, car repair, $1,200 needed. He stared at the problem. In the old days, he would have panicked, borrowed money at terrible rates, or just ignored it and hoped it went away. But 3 months of habits had changed something in him. He'd learned that problems weren't solved with panic, they were solved with plans. What were his options? Option A, use his $440 savings and find a way to earn the other $760. He was already working 2 jobs, but what if he picked up extra shifts? His warehouse job often needed weekend help. If he worked both Saturday and Sunday for the next 3 weeks, he could make an extra $400. What about the other $360? He thought about his new marketing skills. What if he offered to do social media management for local businesses? He could charge $50 to set up and manage their accounts for a month. If he could find 8 clients, that was $400. Was it possible to find 8 clients in 3 weeks? Maybe not, but it was worth trying. Option B, fix the most critical car problem only, patch the rest temporarily. He called the mechanic. What absolutely has to be fixed for the car to run safely? The alternator and 1 belt, the mechanic said. That's $650, the rest can wait. $650 was more manageable, still hard, but possible. Marcus made a plan. Use $440 from savings for the repair. Pick up every available weekend shift at the warehouse for the next month. Create a simple flyer offering social media services and visit 20 local businesses. Cut spending to absolute essentials for the next month. No extras, no treats, rice and beans if necessary. Pay Emily's field trip fee from his next paycheck, even if it meant he was short on other things. It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was a plan. And having a plan felt better than having panic. The next morning, Marcus woke at 5:30, worked on his marketing learning for 30 minutes, then spent an extra hour creating a professional-looking flyer for his social media services. He printed 50 copies at the library. During his lunch break at the retail job, he walked to businesses in the area, coffee shops,